He hesitated, then heard someone yelling, and didn't wait to find out what they wanted. He quickly followed Ted across the track and up the ladder and was just able to keep up as the other man ducked through a door. Ted led him through a couple of rooms, then climbed up on some pipes and started working his way into the darkness. He still heard shouting behind them, and it drove him on, following Big Ted. At first, it was kind of fun, sort of like an adventure. He figured he'd hang with Big Ted for a couple of days, then maybe go somewhere else, maybe even get out of the city. But a couple of days later it started snowing, and at least it was warm down in the tunnels. Well, at least it wasn't freezing cold down there. If you were careful, you could use the men's room around the corner from the oyster bar if you didn't stay too long and the transit cops weren't feeling too mean. But after he barely got away when they busted Big Ted, he spent more time in the tunnels than upstairs. He got used to it. It wasn't near as dark as it seemed at first. There were more lights than he'd thought, and after a while he even grew accustomed to the noise.
Like the gentle rolling of ocean surf,
Annie Thompson had called it in her gentle drawl that 2 years on the streets of New York hadn't hardened.
Puts you to sleep just like you were on the beach at Hilton Head.
He didn't believe she'd ever lived in Hilton Head, but then she probably wouldn't have believed he'd grown up in California. It didn't matter. All that mattered was that they were both still alive. Or what passed for alive. Most of the time, there wasn't much difference between night and day, unless you were under one of the grates that opened up into a park or something, and for the last couple of days, maybe even a week, he'd been staying away from the grates. The grates, and the subway stations, and the train stations, and the culverts, and the mouths of the tunnels. None of it was safe anymore. None of it. Not any friends anymore either. A few days ago, maybe a week, he'd had friends. Annie Thompson, and Ike, and that girl. The one whose name he couldn't remember. Didn't matter no more, anyway, once they started coming after him. They. The thing was, he didn't know who they were. Up until the craziness started, he thought they were his friends. But then one day when he left the tunnels, he snatched a purse. It was real easy. He'd watched Big Ted do it lots of times. The woman he'd snatched it from hadn't even tried to hang on to it. She didn't even yell for help. A couple of hours later, still on the outside, he ran into Annie Thompson. She'd been right there in the subway station where he made the snatch and saw it all. But instead of asking him how much money he'd gotten or to split it with her, which he might even have done, she told him off.
You crazy? What did you want to do that for?
She kept on talking, but he didn't listen. He was too busy looking at a girl who'd just come out of the big church on Amsterdam Avenue and wondering what it would be like to talk to her. Not touch her or anything like that, just talk to her. So he'd pretty much ignored Annie until he ran into her later. He couldn't remember exactly when, and she'd warned him.
Better get out,
she said.
You really think you could get away with that? Now they're coming after you.
He hadn't believed her until the next time he tried to get to the surface through one of the subway stations, and some of Ike's friends had shown him their knives. He could tell by the look in their eyes they weren't kidding. He'd been on the run ever since. And he'd been going deeper and deeper, climbing down ladders whenever he found them, crawling through drain pipes he could barely fit into, creeping on his belly through slimy passages so tight that if they hadn't been slick with scum, he wouldn't have been able to make it at all. Now, he lay on a ledge above a passageway that was so dark, if he shut off his flashlight, he couldn't see his hand in front of his eyes. The batteries were dying, and even if they hadn't been, he couldn't risk the dimming glow of the flashlight giving him away. He heard something moving in the dark, then felt whatever it was skitter across his hand. In the distance, a train rumbling. In the darkness, a flash of red. The rumbling of the train grew louder. He shrank back against the wall behind him, instinctively holding his breath. The whole passage trembled as somewhere above him the train roared over. As the rumbling tremor faded away, the passage grew still. He let himself relax. He took a breath, and the fetid odor of decay filled his nostrils. Again,